The part that really stayed with me during the podcast was when they talk about depression, low mood, trouble sleeping, the struggle to even get out of bed. The part that really resonates with me is that so many people mistake this symptom for laziness or lack of motivation. But depression isn't a choice. It's a real condition that drains your energy. And hearing in explaining so clearly remind me how it is important to talk about mental health without judgment. So please watch it.
Depression and other mental health, but let's focus on depression for a moment, is this is done by your prefrontal cortex, right? We know this, the executive center, right? But it also controls things and also is noticeable when you have things like anxiety or ADHD, it's motivation, it's your sleep quality. And all of these things work in harmony together to improve your overall well-being and your ability to execute on what you want to do. So with CBT is phenomenal for making you aware of what sleep patterns am I having, right? There's also connected devices that come into play in this form, but it just makes you aware of, okay, am I going to bed at 1 o'clock every morning, right? Am I not going to bed before midnight? When am I waking up? How's my eating habits doing? So these are things that are part of becoming a healthy and balanced human. However, lots of times with depressed people, especially once you start getting into those moderate and severe depression scalas, what ends up happening is they're just unable, you hear it the most, and they're unable to make that first big change. And so you hear it a lot of times that depressed people will say, like, you know what, I just can't get out of bed, or I find it so hard to answer a phone. And a moderate and mild might just be, you know what, I have a really hard time answering friends when they write me on WhatsApp for whatever reason, right? So for us, we see flow as the neuromodulation portion of it really helps people kind of rediscover those neural pathways. It allows them to take the first steps, and then it manifests itself because once they start going and then they clean the kitchen for the first time, they're like, wow, I have this in me. And of course, now you've done a positive association with something that you've done, which you probably haven't felt in a while. And that releases dopamine again. And so you're starting to build little feedback loops, but in a positive sense, right? And I think it was the author, was it Raphael Taylor or something, who wrote the book around nudging and how we all need to learn how to be a little bit better in nudging into the positive sense and using these dark patterns that exist to kind of go into a negative light by using them in a positive sense, right?
Well, technology as a tool can be fantastic. It's allowing us to have this conversation right now. And so if technology is leading me to text my friend and get directions somewhere, and, maybe can even, if AI, you can use it as a tool to boost, conversation starters and to give you confidence. But that's a tool. It's not the relationship. And so exactly what you're saying, so much of our lives right now, and COVID really expedited this, have us being online more and more than ever before. But as human beings, we are sensory and we have 5 senses for a reason. And so I have tactile needs and I have needs to smell and I have needs for relationships and connections. And when we're in an office, we get those needs met so easily. We go into the break room and get coffee. We have a quick chat with a coworker. There's noise in the background. We're, touching our desk. There's so many other things happening. And when we reduce our lives to me and a screen, then I think that we're missing how much we're giving up for convenience. And yes, sometimes, it's not all or nothing. I think that's an important piece of what you're talking about. What are the boundaries? What's the balance? It's great. It's allowing us technology to connect from all, we're in 3 different time zones. That's fantastic. And yet making sure that we're balancing our lives, and that after this, I think that, Mark, you're in a cafe, that's fantastic. You're around other people and really making sure that tools are connecting us to our humanity.
So, by the way, I'm in the university today, so this is
Great.
homecoming, but it's not my homecoming. I'm going to present some of the recent findings from our digital reset and the framework to kind of actually, the digital reset is a human experience, right? So it's me or Mark live talking to people asynchronously, but a real voice on time, like we're doing now. And visual is even better. You talked about human needs, right? So you can now talk to the AI. Many people are talking nonstop to the AI or typing with them, but there's not this, even if it's through screen, there's eye to eye contact, there's nodding, there's nonverbal, there's smiling, there's laughing, right? And that cannot be replaced.
So I don't have just one favorite moment. Actually, I have a lot of favorite moments. And those moments are when our guests, when the host and the guests are laughing together, because that shows that there's not just an interview, there's not just a podcast where the guests go to there and say things and answer questions, but there is a sense of friendship, there is a sense of collaboration, and at the end there's a sense of enjoyment. That is what are we looking for, to have that enjoyment with other people, with guests in this case.
Other people and what they're
Okay.
I'll open up one of those buttons. Yeah.
So
And so with this measurement, we can see people who perform better or who perform worse than average. And this is due, each brain is unique. And this is due our lifestyles and our environments. So from your measurements, we definitely saw that your brain was in peace and well focused.
So those years of meditation and reading, attention focus actually showed in the data, right? So it's not just thinking that you're focused. We actually measure that, and then you can use it with neurofeedback to train yourself to be more and more focused. That's the idea, right?
Yes, you can use it for this purpose, but we really need to think about as a holistic approach. You cannot just do the meditation or training on focus and then go for 15 minutes per day and then go and scroll your phone in the evening for 2 hours on TikTok, because the habit of scrolling really destroys our focus abilities, and it
Group or cultural minorities always have worse mental health
Yes,
outcome, more addiction.
definitely. Yep.
Know that.
Mhm.
And Mark, can you share? You mentioned toxic. I don't like the word toxic, as you might know, but like, what can you describe what he called toxic, or what was the relationship, and see it in the relationship lens as well?
I think that this individual in question is dealing with a lot of feelings of not being lovable or worthy, right? And he looks for reasons why his partner might not love him, and constantly feeling like he's not living up to the expectations of the partner. And then in previous relationships that the girl he always wanted was never available for him, right? And it's a consequence of him. Nobody wants to date him, right? That's the belief. That's the story that he's really convinced himself by, and that's come to determine his relationships.
Mhm. So you put your finger on something really important, which is self-worth, and self-worth is something intrinsic and universal to all of us. We all have worth. Actually, I tell my clients, even if they don't have a religious belief, you because the Christian belief would say, you're made in the image of God. But, if you don't have that belief, all living things are beautiful. Actually, I asked them to think of one living thing that's not beautiful. So how can they be not beautiful, right? And I think finding that worth in himself, and it's not based on their actions, is based on who they are. And I think it's very important for a therapist or for relationship partners to see each other's real worth and what I call essential qualities. So I think we need to hear not only about problems and pathologies and symptoms, but we want to hear, the strength in these people, the character, the light in them.
What they've done is they've stopped catering towards you, the user, and they're catering towards me, the advertiser. And so we call this enshittification. But these algorithmic changes on Instagram and Facebook, these are recent. This was 2018 or 17, maybe. Like, we're only 6 to 7 years into this. And now we're seeing the consequences, right? The study on this hasn't been enough, but we're seeing that the addiction patterns in social media are essentially the same addiction patterns that we see in mice when we give them sugar. And we all know sugar is one of the most addictive things, right? We might as well just be injecting nicotine like straight into it, because this is where, like, we used to take something which was it was fun. It was kind of, it did connect. It presented a room for collaboration and conversation and a sharing of ideas. And we've really morphed that into, okay, how can we create and give you the most amount of content? So Mark's going to sit there and scroll for hours and hours and hours, and it's just enough to keep you on, but you're not happy, right? And so this is the problem, I think, with social media and where we are right now. And we're seeing mental health levels and mental health crises happening right now, especially depression, anxiety, ADHD, all of these things, because we have a 200,000-year-old brain, essentially, that's got 6 years to adapt. And it's just not possible. It's just not possible for us to adapt that fast.
And I think there are some studies. We saw a lot of them. There's even a 15-year longitudinal study, and we know the effect of phone use and more addiction and phone addiction. But I think that it's another fundamental flaw of logic of the human being is that we are always. There's a book called the Debt Denial or Denial of Debt. I forgot the author. But it's also the concept of, people think that they'll have more time, right? So first of all, you don't know where you're going to die. But even if you're going to die at the latest, which is 90 or 100 years old, you're passing your time on the screen. And then, whoa, what happened, right? I thought I had more time. Well, no. And then, even more than time, now the biggest commodity is not time, it's attention, right? So you might be spending time with your family or your girlfriend or whoever, but you're not really spending time. You're disconnected.
I mean, again, if it provides you if it truly provides happiness, right? If you can put the phone down, you say, like, I don't think I've ever met anybody who's super happy to admit, hey, what did you do last night? Oh, I scrolled on TikTok for 6 hours. It was awesome, right? No, it's always, I scrolled 6 hours on TikTok. I went to bed at 3.
They don't even say 6 hours.
Yeah. It could be more. But my point is, if it truly makes you happy, like, I don't think anyone's going to judge you for doing something that's going to make you happy, if it doesn't harm anybody else, of course. But most of the time, we're kidding ourselves when we're saying we're having a fun time on these. Like, sure, you'll get the memes and everything and haha every once in a while, but honestly, if you're scrolling through your feed, I want to venture 60 or 70% is ads anyway. So what are you having a really good time watching ads, right? So I think for that's where social media is at for me right now. And you can tell I'm not a big fan of it, because I see what it's doing to my half siblings, and they know it's brain rot and they're happy and proud about it. And you're like, but guys, that's not okay. You're not learning. You're not experiencing.
Again, and I have been working with her on a weekly basis for teletherapy, and she is thriving. It is one of the most gratifying professional experiences I've ever had in my career. We even wrote an article in the American Academy of Child Adolescent Psychiatry news magazine together, detailing her story and her journey. And if it wasn't for telehealth, it wasn't for teletherapy, it's hard to say where she would be. I'm not going to completely speak for her, but I think it would be safe to say she would have a hard time believing she's in the place that she is right now in her life, thanks to teletherapy.
Well, thanks for this specific poignant story. And we also have a telehelp, telecoaching, teletherapy platform which are impacting. I have clients in Europe. We have clients everywhere, and having the right fit. And I've been told, yes, I had the psychologist or psychiatrist or this before. I've had 3 or 4, and once you have the right one, now it could be anywhere in the world. And that's really an important factor, that you have more choice and that you can build that relationship. Of course, ideally hybrid, especially if there's medication, but there is so much more support than this bogged down of waiting lists, right? You need a psychologist today. Well, wait a few weeks, months, we'll see, right? And that's where some of those kids and youth can fall off the craft, right?
And you make a great point about the fit. We know that the rapport, the therapeutic alliance, is an essential predictive factor of progress and improvement in treatment. And when you juxtapose that against the wait lists and the wait times, someone can feel fairly stuck because I don't have an option. This doesn't feel like a good fit, but I don't have any other option, and this is better than nothing. Whereas, as you mentioned, with telehealth, you have the opportunity to much expand that network and find the right fit, because that is an absolute difference maker when it comes to a patient making progress in their treatment.
The biggest problem of these times, which is technology, which is also a great thing. So we're not anti-technology, but we just want to bring awareness that your phone use, that your TV use, that all the devices that allow us to have this nice chat also can be problematic. And it's better to prevent it than to have to cure people with severe addiction, loneliness, suicidal thoughts. We've been dealing with some of those people, and we want to help the ones that need help, and also prevent people from getting mental health problems, relationship problems, school or work problems. And that's what we're here to do together.
Amazing. I think that it's undeniable that digital addiction is a sweeping issue, and even more now with AI and this feeling of realness online. But where do we even start here? I think let's start with attention spans. And this thing it's affecting everyone. We now officially have less than the attention span of a goldfish. Congratulations to the human race. Win stupid games, or play stupid games, win stupid prizes, as they say. So how does all digital wellness, or how do you believe that we can combat this attention span problem?
Well, attention is, as I say, the key to life. We used to say, time is the most precious resource. It's more important than money. But then we realized people have time, but they're not using the time with the right attention. So attention is the most precious resource. And, some companies have found that out. So they're, trying to take our attention to get, whatever rewards that they want. But what we want is to give your attention back to you by being more aware of what attention you're doing and what you're getting from it. So it's not only the amount of time that you're spending on your device, but it's also, are you getting a meaningful experience in it? We're not anti-device. There's great things that are happening with those technology, just to be more aware of what it is. So how to regain attention? There's a few things, I saw a post lately that I reposted on how the brain is affected by sunsets. Actually, this morning I saw a beautiful sunrise. It was raining for a few days, but today was a beautiful sunrise. And those things can help your attention. So, having plants in your office, going for a nature walk. Nature has shown there is this theory called restoration attention theory. Many papers written on that explain how you can regain attention slowly by having more exposure to nature. And one of the latest study by a research team in China looked at restoration attention by social means. So people were going to a social festival, an event, and they saw that their attention was regained when they had good social connection and social bonds.
So you think about it like this, actually, that the more you watch, the more you're conditioning yourself to be motivated when you think about porn or when you see some sort of imagery for it, right? So this is keeping you in a trap, in a vicious cycle, because the more you watch, like the more of the less control you have over your inhibition. And this is proven, at a neuropsychological level by the studies that we're mentioning here, right?
And I have